Okay, I think we'll get started. So welcome to today's first session. Today's session is obviously the MindCouch series that we've just launched for all employees. And today we're looking at staying connected. So today's session is all around kind of how do you stay connected with everything that's going on, whether you're working from home, whether you're furloughed, and kind of how do we keep up our motivations and our productivity. So we've got a guest or a panel of guests that are joining us today to talk about what they do, and Chloe and Hannah are going to take us through this session. But just to give you an idea of what the whole series is about, we've launched this for everyone in the business, so for all employees, to really just exactly what the session says today, to stay connected, for us to really talk through different areas and to get some ideas and to think about what we are doing with our time. And again, like I say, this is for people who are on furlough or people who are still working. So today's session is stay connected. Next week's session on Tuesday will be about keeping yourself motivated and productive. So we've got Parmi and Simran joining us on the panel to talk through that. And then we'll move on to collaboration. So how do you keep a teaming culture from afar? So we've got Ian Small. Chris has actually changed. That's changed out to Lewis Elliott. So he'll be joining us for that to talk about how he's doing that at the moment, being the only PM on his team. Then we'll move into habits, how to make and break them. And we'll finish up the kind of May sessions with navigating the change. And if you guys like this and you're enjoying this, then we'd look to carry this on going forward as well, for us to just have these kind of check-ins and discussions and talk about tools and practices and things that you guys can use as well, so to give you some ideas and things to take away. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Chloe. She's going to take us through the first part of the session, and then we'll move into the panel discussion. Over to you, Chloe.
Great, thanks Sheila, and thank you very much for putting these all together. First of all, I'm excited to watch them all through. I also want to say a big thank you to our panel, our lovely panel here. I think to start with, it would be really great if we could just go around, introduce ourselves. Particularly interested to know if you're working at the moment or you're not working, and I think that would be really useful. So if I stop sharing, and Alice, if you just want to quickly introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Alice. I'm a Senior Talent Acquisition Specialist and I am currently on furlough.
Amy.
I'm Amy and I'm a payments consultant on the Inside Connect sales team, and I'm on furlough too.
Lovely. And Sheila.
Hi guys, I'm the head of L&D. If you don't know, I look after a few different teams doing training, coaching and the Connect to the S team. I'm actually currently still working, but I've had a lot of people on my team who have been furloughed as well, so I'm hoping I can kind of give a bit of insight on both sides today.
Lovely. And Hannah as well, who's going to help go through some of the introduction with me.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm the internal comms manager and I joined 2 months ago, so it's been an interesting start to the job.
Into the deep end. Lovely. And just bring up my screen again. Oh, sorry. Bear with me. Okay, before we start, Hannah and I are going to do a bit of an introduction into the topic that Sheila mentioned. So a little bit around looking after your well-being whilst you're in lockdown, a little bit of some of the ideas and resources that are available for you. But we'd like this to be as interactive as possible. So as and when we're speaking, please add your questions in, use the Q&A box available on Zoom. And after our introduction, we will move into a full Q&A with our lovely host members. So please do ask as many questions as you'd like. So I'm going to hand over to Hannah now to start us off.
Hi, so I think I just want to start off by saying that COVID will impact everyone in a completely different way, and the tools that we'll go through today and the advice that we have will be useful to different people in different ways. So take in what works for you. You know yourself better than anyone else. So there'll be lots of different themes and ideas that we talk about. Just write down the things that work for you, and then create your own little toolbox with that. As I said, COVID has impacted people in so many different ways. So from people who are still working, managing that work-life balance, maybe having kids at home as well, not being able to leave the house as much as you used to. And then for the people who are not working, who are on furlough, this kind of loss of purpose and routine. So that's been really difficult. And then we've also got the added stress of worrying about family and friends, either because they've been sick, or we haven't been able to see them or care for them, or we're worried about making them sick. So there's this added stress around that. And then, of course, there's the financial stress. So, you know, people's partners have stopped working, people themselves have stopped working. And I think, you know, sometimes you hear this, now's the best time ever to save, you should be putting all your money away. And actually, that's not a realistic, you know, state for a lot of people. So there's that. And then there's the kind of, you know, feeling isolated and alone, even if you are living with people, you're interacting with those same people every day, or you might be living on your own. So there's so many different things and feelings and ways that this is affecting us it's kind of unprecedented, as that word has been totally overused, but I think it's appropriate here. So yeah, that's the impact. I'm going to hand back to Chloe to talk about well-being around these ideas.
Great. Yeah, and I think what Hannah says is just totally true. There is no one size fits all. And the same of well-being, really. I think often people think of the well-being as this physical thing, and, you know, I'll do a bit of yoga in the morning, I'll go for a run, and suddenly I'm going to feel well. And the reality is well-being is a lot more than just your physical well-being. And there's lots of different models that break this down in different ways, but this is one I quite like that breaks it into 8 different areas. I'm going to briefly sort of talk about what those areas are. So financial is the sort of fairly obvious one, but it's a huge stressor when we're in a global pandemic and when we're not, and it can really wreak havoc on how we feel and how well we feel, and it's one that you can often feel out of control of. But Hannah's going to talk about this and after, and kind of small little things you can do to regain a little bit of control, and hopefully feel a bit better around that. The intellectual side of your well-being, so keeping your brain active and seeking ways to improve your knowledge and skills. There's this idea around personal growth and continued learning actually enhancing our self-esteem as individuals, and also of the practice of setting ourselves goals of actually leading to us feeling this sense of higher well-being. So I think that's an important thing to consider too. Occupational, so that's how satisfied we feel with our job, our work-life balance, the stress that we might have. And I recognise that for some of us on the call at the moment, that's not as relevant, but it can also relate to how we feel about our colleagues and our teammates as well. And, you know, whilst you might not be able to do your work as normal at the moment, there are still plenty of activities where you can connect with your teammates in actually ways that you might not do when you're in the office and doing your normal job. So I think there are things that you can do to feel a little bit better if that's an area that is feeling less good at the moment. The social side, so that's that feeling connected, belonging. I think it's one we think about a lot, but it's, you know, there's a lot of evidence that it's actually a fundamental human need to feel connected to and valued by other people. So that's a really kind of important part of how we feel. The physical stuff is the obvious stuff. So it's all the activities that, you know, ranging from a slow walk to yoga to high intensity cardio or dance class or whatever works for you. And it's also the sleep routine. It's also the nutrition side as well. That all feeds into our well-being. Environmental, it's not one I always think about, but it's a huge part of how we feel, our surroundings and what we're surrounded by. So I think it's also just being a bit more aware. And again, I recognise at the moment it's a hard one to control. We're stuck in the same environment day in and day out. And for some of us, that might be really, really hard. It might be a small room that we don't have a lot of space. But again, it's taking notice of your surroundings. It's little things that you can do, you know, opening that window, having that new plant. And, you know, if you can get that daily exercise, really taking note of the different environments that you're seeing. The spiritual side, the deeper stuff, so your core values, beliefs, that sense of purpose that you have. A lot of that can come from the ways that we often think people maybe who are spiritual are, so the meditation side, the self-reflection, the prayer, you know, time outside, quiet time. There's also a lot of studies that link the spiritual side to giving back. and volunteering and kindness. This year's theme for Mental Health Awareness Week is actually kindness, which I think is really lovely, and the impact that being kind can have on how we feel. That daily act of kindness, it can really, really transform how good you feel. And the emotional side, and that's just really how effectively we can cope with our life, how in control of our feelings and thoughts we are. You know, in times like these, it's often where we really build that resilience up as well. We build that emotional well-being and strength. And often with that one, the way to kind of work on it is find that activity or that thing that works for you, that allows you to take yourself out of your mind, I suppose. That recreational activity, it might be a creative activity where you can really re-engage and take yourself away from the day-to-day life. And often, again, things like using your different senses are good on this one. So listening to music, watching films, tasting new foods, and being aware and alert of your senses. So they're the kind of different things and ways you can break down your well-being. And now I'm going to hand over to Hannah to work through some of the ways, some of the ideas to improve them.
Great. So, I mean, this slide is slightly overwhelming, so you don't need to do all of these things. And my suggestion would be you could draw something similar up to this and kind of have your buckets and add in ideas. I would probably focus on 1 or 2 a week, maybe 3. Try not to do all of these things at once. And I think, you know, we've talked about in these morning mindfulness sessions that MobFit have put on, that it takes, I think, 12 weeks to create a habit. So this stuff is not going to happen overnight, but they're all nice ideas that you can implement over the next few weeks or months. So as Chloe said, the physical part of well-being, it's all about eating well, you know, what you're putting into your body, having a balanced diet, but enjoying food as well, having a good sleep routine. Sleep is so important. It kind of shaves off years of your life if you're not getting a decent amount of sleep. And I know it's quite hard at the moment, but there's lots of apps out there that help you sleep better and calm you down before bed. And then, of course, daily exercise is really important. Even if it's 10 minutes and it's just a walk around the park, it's better than just staying inside. From an occupational perspective, so work, this is really important, especially as I think a lot of people struggle to get that office interaction that they would normally get. And if you're not talking to colleagues as much as you normally would be, things like the Stay Connected channel can be really nice. Making sure you're staying up to date with the town halls and the company socials and webinars like this. We've got George and Jan's Ask Us Anything next week, and I beg you to ask the questions that are on your mind. Give them the hard stuff. So we'll be asking for those questions over the next week. And then things like LinkedIn Learning. Are there skills and things that you have wanted to know about? You know, do you want to become a marketeer or learn more about high performance? You know, there's so many courses on LinkedIn Learning. And then things like self-development, puzzles, learning a language. From an intellectual perspective, how can you challenge yourself and do something that you normally wouldn't have time to do? From a social perspective, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I'm a little bit sick of Zoom quizzes. I've needed a break the last couple of days, but they have been so nice, connecting with friends. And I think sometimes you just need to organize it. And it's so much nicer once you've spoken to your friends, even if it's just for 10 minutes. It really does kind of make your day. There's lots of online virtual clubs. We've got book club, which is really nice. We've been reading a book that we're about to finish, so we're going to start a new one probably in 2 weeks if you want to join. From an emotional perspective, we've got those morning mindset sessions, which are 8:45 till 9 o'clock with MobFit, and I've been joining them pretty much every day. They're so good. Johnny's great. I think people who struggle with meditation, who haven't wanted to do it in the past, this is such a kind of good way to get in and just try it. It's really simple and easy to do, and it's not too long, so you've only got 15 minutes of focus. And then find your way to relax, what makes you happy, whether that be painting or drawing or cooking, and not putting too much pressure on yourself to do these things. So I think, you know, if you've been on Instagram, it feels like every person has cooked sourdough in the last week, and it's okay not to cook sourdough. If you'd prefer to paint, then do that. And I think, yeah, as I said, be kind to yourself. You don't need to fill every day with all of these things. Just doing one thing a day is good. From a financial perspective, this is such an interesting one and something that I've been working on. I've been listening to a podcast called She's on the Money, and I think women often aren't as good with budgets and financial independence and things like that. My mum always used to say, a man is not a financial plan. And, it's so true. And I think for anyone, now is such a good time to get on top of your finances, men and women, just to, make a household budget, to look at Money Supermarket. I called up one of our kind of energy suppliers, and we're paying less a month now, and I felt like I'd won the lottery, even though it's about £10 a month. And look at the kind of EAP advice that's available. So that's kind of financial well-being. And then from a spiritual perspective, plan your day if you can. I mean, Amy's probably going to talk about this a bit more when we go through the panel, but she's done such an amazing job of creating these to-do lists every day, and bringing that purpose and that goal to her life while she's not working, which I've just found so inspiring. And setting alarms, so getting dressed. For me, that's been such a big part of things. So getting in clothes that make me feel better, getting ready as if I was going to work, and kind of getting in that mindset. As Chloe said, kind of giving back and volunteering and putting in those kind of acts of kindness throughout your day. And then finally, environmental. So get fresh air where possible. We're so lucky, having spoken to friends in Spain and Italy who can't go outside or haven't been able to go outside. We're so lucky to be able to go outside and open windows and doors. And so make the most of it if you can. Use that hour of exercise or escape your children or partners as much as you can. Over to you, Chloe.
Lovely. Great. And I think all of those things can be taken little bits, whether you're working or whether you're not at the moment. But I did just want to touch on when you're working and this sort of temptation now, you might have lost that hour commute each way. And so maybe you can start a bit earlier and finish a bit later and do those extra hours. And, there is a lot of pressure to get things done. And there are certain days where we do need to put in a little bit more than other days. But I think it's so important to be just aware of it and just cautious of burnout. Working too many hours, and there's lots and lots of science behind this, is actually not so good for our productivity and particularly not good for our creativity. I know, like personally, my best ideas are when I'm in the shower, when I'm taking my dog for a walk. They are absolutely not when I'm sat here for 12 hours in a row. So I think it's just being cautious of that work-life balance. Your home is your office now, and I think boundaries where you can are really, really important. So some of the things that I've found help and other people have found help, and again, it's kind of picking and choosing what works for you here, but taking the breaks, scheduling them if you need to. I schedule my lunch break. It's in my Google Calendar, and I treat it like a meeting. And I'm really, really strict with it. And some days where I know I've got lots and lots of Zoom calls and meetings, I might even schedule a 10-minute coffee break too. And I think, remind yourself it's okay to do that. You would be doing that in the office, and it's okay to do it in your house too. Make time for small talk. We've talked a lot about connection. We've lost all of that. How was your weekend chat? Alice asking me every single morning before I've even sat down how my weekend was, which she loves to do. I think it's really important, to have that talk, to connect in the same way, not just go straight into the work stuff. Fitbits are good for this. Get up every hour. If not, set yourself an alarm, even if it's just a few steps. It's amazing what that can do, changing your position, the way you're sitting, just reframing yourself and reminding yourself of where you are. Where you can, agree a time to log off. I know it's not always easy, but I find I'll always start my day with something, whether that's a run or a walk, and I'll always try and end my day with a different kind of activity, even if it's just my shower or a program that I want to watch. I think agreeing that time to switch yourself off and sticking with it. This is what I've been thinking about recently, and I've always justified having Slack and emails on my phone because of my commute, and I sit on the train for a long time and I do my emails, and I valued that time. But at the moment, do you really need those things on your phone? Or actually, can you switch that off? And when you are out away from your office, do you need to have your Slack pinging off and your emails pinging off? Maybe not. Could be something to look at. Be really cautious of Zoom burnout. Zoom's been brilliant. Those virtual quizzes, all these sudden virtual meetings, these daily check-ins you've got with your teams. But remember that Zoom is also replacing all of those small talk meetings. And there's a lot of research coming out at the moment that Zoom drains us of a lot more energy because of that. We're really almost having to focus on having small talk, focus and looking at ourselves for hours in a day. Zoom is great. It does help us feel more connected, but just be cautious with it. Not every meeting maybe needs to be a Zoom, not every chat with your friends or your family. Have a phone call, send an email, and be aware of yourself and what works for you. We've touched on this, but yeah, getting dressed I think is a big good thing. Fresh air every day and daily exercise where possible. And then I know it's not as easy if you're working in one room, but just creating a little bit of boundary, even if it's just this part of the table is where I work and this part is where I eat. And I think just having that separation is really important. So yeah, we've brought this quote up. Hannah and I really like this one because we've gone through millions of different things here that you can do, but I think also, remind ourselves we are in this global pandemic, we're in a crisis, and it is okay just to cope. And we like this quote a lot, that it's okay if you didn't learn a new skill today, it's okay if you didn't bake a sourdough bread, it's okay if you were lazy. And what's not okay is if you let like a checklist or experts on social media make you feel guilty for trying to just cope. So don't let other people's definition of productivity keep you from enjoying your life. And now, finally, just before we move into the Q&A, I just wanted to remind you all of the kind of different resources, and we've touched on quite a few of these, available at Payment Sense. We'll make sure you get these slides, so I won't go into a lot of detail here, but there's lots of different things. Again, pick and choose what works for you. Please do join in things where you'd like to. But for now, and there's a weekly email that goes out on a Monday. I just wanted to stress that, and that Hannah sends that out with all the upcoming activities. So please do have a look out for that on a Monday morning. So without further ado, I'm going to move over to our lovely panel members here. And my first question is for Amy. So you mentioned you were furloughed, and I just want you to, if you don't mind, sort of talk about how you initially felt when that happened. Did you have any particular concerns or worries, or were there actually things you were really looking forward to doing?
So I think initially I was actually really scared. And I think the look on my boyfriend's face was just like, what, you're on furlough, you're going to get paid 8% of your wage, and you're going to, you can do things that you like don't normally have time for, or you think you don't have time for. But I was like, I'm really scared. I just felt like furlough, not working, all these thoughts are buzzing around in my mind. And I think it just happened really quickly. We saw all of a sudden things happening in other countries. And then when it sort of came over here, and then, it went very quickly from slowly sort of testing, working from home, to actually we've all got to stay at home. And then actually we probably going to have to be on furlough. And I think everything just happened so quickly. So it was almost like it felt quite negative in a way, just naturally because of what's happening on the news and the reason that this is all happening. And so yeah, there was a lot of fear, and quite honestly I was really worried about my mental health and whether I would have sort of bouts of anxiety, what I was going to do with my day. So there was a lot of that. And then once I'd calmed down, actually I started to think, hang on, maybe there's things that I can do where, when you wake up on, say, a Saturday morning, but because you've had a long week at work, you're like, oh, I can't be bothered, I am just going to sit in bed all day, I'm going to do this. And you've got work on Monday, so then it doesn't feel like it's as much of a waste, it feels like a well-earned rest. So yeah, there was loads of things then that I started to think of. I was like, I want to do this, I want to do that. I think the most annoying thing about all of this lockdown is that if we naturally were off work, we'd probably go traveling or we'd visit friends and family. So yeah, it was just about sitting down and thinking, right, what are the things that I want to do, or what do I think is going to help me to kind of stay calm? And I think that's kind of where a lot of the list making stuff came from. I think it's where a lot of things that maybe I guess everyone's baking banana bread. It's just that same kind of thing where you're getting little joys out of that. So yeah, I think for me it was mainly the fear, and then once I'd calmed down, it was like, right, okay, I can actually do some really nice things. And luckily we've got Amazon, so we can order. So I've done like little herb boxes. Normally I'd think, oh, I don't have time to do stuff like this. I don't have time to check or remember to water a plant. And so yeah, it was really nice to kind of have that. And I used some of the basil leaves in pasta yesterday. Like, it's just little things like that you're getting small little joys out of. So yeah, there was, like I said, definitely the fear, but then a lot of the things very quickly became really enjoyable. So like really simple, stripped back things.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And so yeah, I really relate as well, even as I'm still working, but it all did happen so quickly. It was such a roller coaster of emotions. So yeah, I think just totally natural. Thank you for sharing. Alice, did you feel sort of in a similar way? What were some of your concerns or worries?
I think in the build up to it, I was anxious because I was almost waiting for it, because it was inevitable that I was going to be furloughed at some point. I just didn't know when. So that anxiety kind of shifted from not knowing to then the calm of, okay, it's happened. Now I know where I am, to, in the space of about 30 seconds, all of this is happening, by the way, to shit, how am I going to fill all this time that I'm going to have? So that was kind of like a shift in anxiety, I guess. But I mean, some of the concerns I had was, will I get my job back at the end of it? Because I can have a really nice, jolly time, but actually, should I be looking for another job, or should I be worried about it? Or that was an initial concern. Another thing was almost like a lack of will to give up my job and hand it over to someone else, like that control. And then, unease at not being able to speak to people all the time, because at this time I wasn't sure whether I'd have all the access that I have, and that kind of thing. I was worried about missing out, major FOMO. And then kind of the social side, so just missing, and not just social with colleagues and friends at work, but the social aspect to my job as well. So speaking to new people, keeping my brain active by like talking to lots of different, exceptional people. Kind of like, how am I going to keep my brain active in that sense as well? But then it did quickly go to from that to, but I am very lucky that I'm still going to get paid for doing nothing, essentially, for not working. And I am very lucky that I have my health, my family are healthy, and I just tried to put it in perspective very, very quickly, and that really helped.
Cool. Yeah, I think I've been so impressed and inspired by both of you watching you go through it, because I think, I was unfurlowable because I'd started after the cutoff date, and I went through all the emotions of worrying about losing a job and all, not being sure about what was going to happen. And I think you've both been really inspiring, kind of watching you over the last couple of weeks. It's been great. Sheila, I have a question for you, because you had quite a lot of people in your team be placed on furlough. How did you navigate that, and the emotions of when you first found out that was happening, and then also over the last couple of weeks, how have you stayed connected with those people?
Yeah, for me it was quite a strange time, really, because I had, when we first kind of started going into the optional work from home, it was very much hands-on. We were launching business funding across the business. It was like I had all hands on decks with my entire team, and then quite quickly it moved into the furlough. So I furloughed about 21 of 25 person team, so quite a large proportion of my team were furloughed, and I've only got 4 that are still working. So for me it was kind of 2 parts. There was the fear that I had of having such a reduced team and having to keep up the amount that we were doing. We were still training out. We'd removed everything online and digital, and we were still having to support all the same teams, but with a hell of a lot less people. And then also that connection piece. And for me as well, just telling people about the furlough was kind of a big fear that I had, and helping them to kind of see. I was worried, I suppose, initially about the reactions and how people would take it. but actually the perception was really good. So we all jumped onto a Zoom call, and I'll talk a bit more about Zoom in a second, but we all jumped onto a Zoom call, and I kind of talked through what was happening and why, and the reasons why we were doing it as a business. And there were a few questions, but overall it was taken quite well, I think, from what I could gauge from it. I think people really understood it, and again, like the girls have already said, the biggest thing was knowing that you still have the job at the end of it. I think that's people's biggest fear at the moment, is kind of this uncertainty of what happens when we return to normal. So the fact that they know they've got their jobs when they come back, and that we need to keep going once they come back, was kind of a real relief for me, that they were so happy with that. So that was good. And like I said, also in terms of then those of us that were left to still carry on working, we were at a fifth of the team even. So we were a lot less people than we normally have. So just keeping those guys engaged and motivated, and kind of setting the scene that we are a lot less people. Our jobs are going to expand in terms of how much responsibility, and we kind of all need to work together as a team now and help each other, and put all hands on deck really to keep going, and for them to feel they've all got managers above them, so they don't all report directly into me, the ones that are left. So that was another sort of challenge that I came across, was kind of establishing a new relationship with these guys, and working out how we can work together as a team from across different areas of the business, and bring that all together. So that was good. So what I do in terms of kind of the contacts that we still have, so everyone in my department, we do kind of a Zoom call. We call it our Think and Drink, and we dial in with a drink, and we do a few business updates, so those that are on furlough can keep up to speed of what we've been working on, and then we just go into a fun activity. So we have a games master each week, which we nominate from the team, and they lead us through kind of a game for the end of the week, and that's kind of what we've set so far. Last week I also started ringing out, and I'm finishing that up this week, but ringing out to all those on furlough as well, just to check in really and see how they're doing and what they need. But that seems to be working quite well. And then with those that are still working, like I said, where we're still trying to keep up the teaming culture and really establish a brand new team in that sense, we do daily stand-ups in the morning, where we just check in, and we just start with kind of, how are you doing, how's the workload, and then we go more into the kind of project driven stuff, and sort of catch up on the workflows. So that seems to be working well. But what I'm conscious of is, for those on furlough and for those still in work, is this whole concept of Zoom burnout, like Chloe said. We not only have our team meetings, but where we're training people across the business, we're constantly in touch with others across the business as well, and have to be really mindful of what's too much communication. And that's kind of where I've been focusing efforts, of just making sure that there's enough, but not overwhelmingly too much communication, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that, it's such a good point. It's something I've thought about recently too. I think, just we've lost all of our human contact, and like we touched on earlier, it's all gone on to Zoom. Hannah, for you, as somebody so new to the business, that must have been really challenging too, that sort of transition. I think you maybe had 2 weeks in the office, didn't you, before we went fully remote? So how have you found that, and have you been able to build those relationships? So what sort of challenges have you had in that transition?
Yeah, I mean, it's been so interesting. I'm an extrovert, and I'm a people person, and I enjoy being around people. So I think that in itself was hard. It has been hard. And then I think on top of that, I came from a job that I'd been in for 2 and a bit years. I had my friends and my work wives and my whoever else that I used to, you'd WhatsApp and have a bitch about someone else, or whatever it was that you needed to vent after a meeting. And I think, you come into a new workplace, and it takes a while to establish those relationships and have those, close colleagues or friends in the business. And I think that's been, even harder, because some days it feels like just kind of meeting after meeting after meeting. And I mean, I love, like, our team. I'm really lucky to have such a great team who's made it really easy, but I imagine for other new starters, it's been a weird time. And I will just say, without kind of sounding like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, I do feel very grateful to be here, because I think this has been a super challenging time for so many businesses, and I think you can react in 2 ways. One is to become quite toxic and negative and focus on all the bad stuff, and the fact that there's people on furlough and there's people who are working harder than ever and it's hard, or you can, you know, make the most of it and try to be positive. And I feel like the positivity is really shining through on Slack and in meetings that I'm in, and you know, it's just made it so much easier, unless I'm missing all the negative meetings, which I could be. It really feels like the culture at the moment is as positive as it could be in this situation, which has been really nice.
Lovely.
My turn for a question. So next question is, Alice, I'll throw to you and then I'll throw to Amy. So you've gone from working 37.5 hours to and commuting to kind of 0, although Alice, your commute was about
Half
2
an hour.
minutes, wasn't it?
25 minutes walk.
So how have you been passing your days over the last month, and have you got a routine?
So I have a routine in the loosest sense of the term, really. So I have programmed all of the MobFit classes into my calendar, and I essentially plan my day around those. So I always try to get out of bed and get outside or go for a run or do some sort of exercise. And then, I just basically plan. So I don't make lists. I haven't got quite that far yet. Probably should do. But I just basically get up, and if I see that the bathroom needs cleaning, I will clean the bathroom there and then, as opposed to thinking the bathroom really needs cleaning, but now I'm going to work, so I can't do it, and I'm going to leave it to the weekend. And then it gets to the weekend and you're like, can't be bothered to clean the bathroom. I just do it like as I see it, which has actually been quite therapeutic. So I just see odd jobs that need doing, and I'm quite spontaneous about it. But you know, it'll get to midday and I'm thinking, shit, I need to get changed and join a MobFit class. And then in the afternoon I'll find other things to do, whether that's pottering about in the garden, I was quite lucky that I just moved into a new flat, so it's been really good having the time to assemble loads of furniture, garden furniture, buy loads of plants. I'd never owned a plant in my life, and I now have about 16 house plants that have different requirements. I'm waiting for a lawnmower delivery. You know, it's just random things that I just managed to fill up my time. And the one thing that I haven't mentioned already is reading. I had a massive stack of books that I just thought I'll never get through, and I got through them all, and now I need more books. So yeah, there's been a lot to keep me going. So, and the weather has been so nice. So, you know, I started off getting up at normal time, thinking, right, I need to get up just like it was any normal work week. But what I've learned actually is, if I did that, I would get to about 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I would be thinking, now what? I've done everything that needs to be done, and I'd get a bit restless. So now I've learned to actually just chill out, and I'll get up when my body wants to get up. And if I want to get up, have some food, and just sit out in the sunshine and read my book, it's okay to do that. I don't need to pressure myself to be as productive anymore. So yeah, that's a bit about what I've been doing.
And I mean, only a tiny bit in the sun, because you've barely got any colour.
Well, I know, yeah.
But if you want to come over to my house and help me with my house plants, that would be greatly appreciated. I currently have an emergency room in the bathroom trying to revive some of them. So over to you, Amy. If anyone is interested, before she starts, she's pulled together this amazing, I'd say, a blog of her top tips. And it's such a great read. So if anyone wants me to send that, I'm happy to. But Amy, same kind of question for you. What's your routine, and how have you been passing the time?
I guess sort of similar to what Alice is saying, in that even things like you see something in the moment and then you do it. And rather than thinking, oh, I can't be bothered, or I'm tired, or I'll do it later. And I think that's really helpful. I feel like I've never washed so many dishes straight away in my life. So I think that's definitely something like in the moment stuff. But generally a day for me, so my partner's still working, which is, I think, massively helpful, because his structure then to his day kind of naturally lends structure to my day. So where he'll get up in the morning and have a coffee, I'll get up in the morning with him, have a coffee, and then I might have certain things on my list. So where I've got a little magnetic fridge thing, we just write basically a list of things for that day, and it is really leisurely. It can move around. It's nothing strict. I've never been a really structured list on it personally like that at all. But I just find so much value in it at the moment, just because, you know, things like cleaning the bathroom, by the time you get to 3 o'clock, if you did that at 11, you probably forget you've done it, or it doesn't seem like a big deal to you. But the fact you've written it down, you can have a look back and be like, actually, I've done loads today. I've cleaned the whole bathroom. I've done a mob fit. I've done this, like 4 or 5 things throughout the day. That's a lot. And I think just having that satisfaction and thinking, actually, I've done so much. I don't need to sort of think, oh, I've been really lazy, or, you know, or things like Alice mentioned reading on Friday, and that really inspired me today. So I've got reading on the list. So later this afternoon, where I know it gets a bit more quiet and I'm not doing like sort of little odd jobs, I thought, right, I'll sit and read for an hour or 2, and then I can tick that off the list. It doesn't feel like wasted time. It doesn't feel like, you know, I've kind of been flitting between odd jobs here and there. So yeah, that's why I think I've championed it so much, just because it does make me feel like at the end of the day, I've done all of these things. It's really nice. And I think just slowing down the pace of things as well, like baking can take 40 minutes, but you know, by the time you've slowly gotten your ingredients together, had a look at a few recipes, you can really make it last about 2 hours. So I think things like that, yeah, just kind of in the moment things, writing down the list, having the structure, and even things like planning. So I don't know how much other people have been struggling with getting hands on food and food orders and things like that. We haven't actually been out to a shop. We've been really like conscious. So we've been trying to get food orders, and we've been using HelloFresh, but then it means we've got to be really regimented with our fresh produce and kind of what we're using when. So we've written like little food lists and plans and things like that. So yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, that's pretty much the structure, the loose structure, and then obviously if things need to change, then they do.
We've just had a comment from Vanessa saying, ladies, this is great. You're selling furlough to me. So you're clearly doing a very good job of making it sound very lovely. And I've just seen a question from Lorna as well. So we'll make sure we save some time. Please do, anyone else, add your questions in. But also I wanted to pass a similar question to Sheila. You know, you're working, as you said, you've got a much smaller team, and we touched on work-life balance earlier. What are your top tips for maintaining a work-life balance, and how are you managing to switch off, or are you?
Yeah, I think for me, yeah, like you said, with a reduced team and what I mentioned earlier about more work, I've kind of really made a conscious effort to make sure I take that time out. So routine is the biggest one for me, just like the girls have already said, but making sure that I actually kind of plan my day and schedule in time to do things. So I'm still getting up at the same time that I would if I was going into the office. I don't really want to get out of that routine. I want to keep that routine going. I've now started the Couch to 5K app that Chloe recommended last week. So I went out this morning for a run, hence the hair and the outfit. But yeah, just kind of keeping structure to my day. And one big thing that I am actually doing now that I didn't used to do in the office is actually taking full lunch breaks as well. So I take my full hour, and I'm lucky I've got an office, so I work in the office and then take myself downstairs and go and have lunch with my husband, which is so nice. And it's just stuff that we wouldn't normally do if I was working in the office, and I don't normally get a time for a full lunch break when I'm in the office, so that's been really good. And then taking the time out in the evenings as well. So when I switching off, leaving everything in the office, closing the door, and actually having an evening, whether it's watching a film or just having a nice meal with my husband, like just making sure that I'm segmenting my day and I'm taking that time to do stuff has really been a key thing for me. So yeah, I'd say that's the biggest thing. Switching off the work phone as well. You said it in your kind of top tips, making sure I actually switch it off and don't answer it after hours as well has been really key. But just keeping the routine is the biggest one for me. Keeping myself kind of prioritizing and segmenting the day.
Yeah, such a good point. I think also I was going to say before on lists and getting jobs done. I think sometimes your whole day can fill up with you know, you get pulled into a Zoom about something you weren't planning to, or a project comes up and you finish the day and you think, you know, I haven't done anything I wanted to do. And sometimes you just need to do a reverse list in the evening and just write down the things that you have done, even if it has just been sitting on Zooms all day, because you have achieved something. Next question is around kind of unplugging and recharging. And I think, as we kind of talked about before, there's a lot of pressure to bake banana bread and make sourdough and you know, become a yoga instructor and learn Spanish. But how do you, Amy, and I'll start with you and then I'll throw to Alice after that. How do you make sure that you have breaks in your day just to chill out and recharge?
I think really it's about not piling too many things on the list. So like today, I've literally had on the list, wake up and we do Joe Wick's 8 minutes abs in the morning, make a smoothie, and then webinar. And so, and then that takes me to lunch. That's 3 things really. Those 3 things don't need to take, you know, I got up at 7:30. That's not, they don't take that long. I think by the time you've like leisurely done it, and you know, there are things that you can enjoy. I think, you know, if you don't want to make banana bread, that's fine. Don't make banana bread. Make something else that you think is really tasty, or something else that you find joy in, or you know, it could just be that you think, do you know what, right now I'm going to sit by the window and look out the window for 10 minutes because I feel like I need that. And I just think it goes back to like acting in the moment of what you feel like you need, which on a normal day you don't normally get to have because you're at work or you're in a different building or you're rushing around. Whereas I guess for me, I've like tried to really slow down and think, do you know what? I've just done the 8 minute abs, but I'm kind of in the mood to do maybe like a bit of a meditation just so that I can feel like I've really slowed my brain down. And that's kind of like a break then. So then if I am, the next job is like, I'm going to do some dishes. It doesn't feel as sort of like it's a chore. And then I guess at the end of the day, so it's really funny because in my mind, I still feel like that Monday to Friday thing. And so I don't get a Friday feeling as such. I don't feel like, oh my God, I'm really exhausted from doing X, Y, Z. But I just think I have that thing in my mind where maybe more exciting things happen or more like the best meals are kept for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But at the end of a day, I think the way to kind of switch off and not feel like you have to do all of these amazing activities and these amazing things are things like sitting and watching a Netflix show or a Zoom call to or a WhatsApp call to, you know, family, friends. Those are all leisurely things that you don't need a skill for, and that are just little things that bring you joy. And I think that that's okay too. You know, you don't have to be super duper productive and achieve all these things. And I really felt like at the beginning of furlough, you know, I should have no excuse. I should be, you know, learning a language. I should have mastered this. I need to come out with like maybe an extra qualification or something on the course site. But the more that I've gotten into it, the more I think actually that's really like not giving myself enough credit for the things that I've done throughout the day that actually are really meaningful. You know, keeping on top of chores, that's a meaningful thing to do. That's something that is a nice thing to do. You know, you're doing it for your home, you're doing it to relax. So I think it's just, yeah, not feeling the pressure of, oh, you've got to come out of those things. It's taking joy in the small little things. And what I like to do is 10 minutes in the shower in the morning, use that for just positive thinking, so that if that's the only time that I am thinking positively, at least it's in the morning, and at least it's like a really heightened sense of actually I've already done this nice thing for my brain, and that's, if that's as productive as it gets, that's fine.
You told us about that last time and I was going to start doing that and I haven't done it, so I'm glad that you brought it up again.
Yeah, but then no pressure to do it, Hannah. So if you feel like you don't, yeah, so you don't need to get down on yourself if you don't do it. Maybe your little ways, some other small thing like making your bed in the morning, like just little things that work for you, and that's enough.
So true. Such good advice. Alice, what about you? I know you were worried about filling your days and making sure you had a lot to do, and you're so good with all the MobFit classes, but do you take, I know you've been reading, is there anything else you do to kind of make sure that you're just chilling out and unplugging?
So for me, the reading is my chilling out and plugging. So I think but the big shift for me was to find a different purpose. So I wasn't working, so I no longer had like a work goal. So what was going to be my other goal? So I kind of made my new purpose about health and fitness, because I personally get a lot of sort of positivity, and I feel good about myself from exercise. But not just that, because we're so sedentary, apart from when you're going out for a run, like you're not walking about the office, you don't have as far to walk and move. I needed to make it a lot more about diet as well, which is tricky for me. The exercise is easy, the diet is, and the cutting out alcohol isn't easy at all. But I kind of like what Amy was saying around her boyfriend's still working, so is mine. So I still have that weekend feeling whereby my boyfriend isn't working. So we have Friday, we have Saturday night takeaways, for instance. So I'm still allowing myself the alcohol on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday sometimes, and the takeaway on a Saturday night, to just completely, chill out and unwind, and not even worry about being completely healthy like I am on Monday to Thursday, let's say. So that's kind of my way of unwinding, really. And because I do build in a lot of time for reading, because that's my way of keeping my brain active, because it's not all fiction. I read quite a lot of non-fiction as well, and stuff that makes me think and keeps my brain active on all sorts of different topics. So yeah.
Amazing. So inspiring. Oh yeah, I'm Team Vanessa here. I'm like, this furlough life is sounding quite lovely. As we approach kind of the final few minutes, I think Lorna's asked a really great question, if anyone's happy to answer it. She said, what is the best new habit you have developed or mastered in lockdown that you didn't have before? Opening it to the floor.
I'll take that first. So for me, it's definitely the running. I mean, I never really focused on my physical well-being, really, if I'm honest. I never really was doing much exercise. I did a bit of yoga and stuff before the lockdown, but using the Couch to 5K app has actually really helped me do that. And it makes me feel good about myself. It makes me feel good in the morning. It gives me energy to start the day. So yeah, definitely a habit that I want to carry on afterwards as well.
Amazing. Yeah. I've just finished a Couch to 5K, Sheila, and now I've just moved on to Couch to 10K. So it just shows you can just keep it going. I'm the same as you. I am not a runner, and I'm still not a runner, but like those little like steps every week just make you feel so good. And yeah, I think if I can come out of this having run 10K, I mean, gosh, the world will be a different place. Anybody else want to answer Lorna's question?
I started doing a pamper day on a Thursday, so I'll do like a face mask, I'll do like a hair mask, I'll like paint my toes, or like whatever it is that's to do with sort of beautifying natural things. And I think I'm definitely going to carry that up. I think it's just a nice little treat to yourself that you kind of either forget or don't always do. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the main things that I've been, and it's made such a difference. Like my hair is normally, because I'm half Arab, it's normally sort of crazy and frizzy, but actually it's, I found a sort of formula with coconut oil and honey to make it smoother. So yeah, definitely will be using that my pamper day.
Lovely. We'll wrap up here with biggest lesson, or if you go back to day one of lockdown, what would you tell yourself? What have you learned most? Alice, do you want to start with you?
Buy more books, diet sooner, because you'll feel a lot better for it, and don't stress. I'm really lucky, and it'll all be okay. Enjoy it.
Yeah, lovely. What about you, Amy?
I would say don't put pressure on yourself, and it would have been nice. The way that I feel now is not how I felt maybe week 1, week 2, even possibly week 3. And I think I've gotten to a nice little stage now, and I kind of would have said, like, yeah, just don't put pressure, don't feel down, and kind of there's not, you can stay positive for a longer period of time. It doesn't have to kind of fluctuate.
Lovely. Sheila?
I think for me, it was sorry. At the beginning, it was I was thinking, right, if I'm working 8 hours in a day, I need to be working the full 8 hours and glued to my computer. And I think when I started implementing like those lunchtime breaks and everything like that, I think that made a real difference to my day. So yeah, that'd be my piece of advice. Don't think that working from home means you need to be glued to your computer screen. Take the time to walk and get a coffee or a tea, or just have a break would be my biggest one.
Amazing. What about you, Hannah?
Yeah, no, I think mine's very similar. It's just implement those routines and don't feel guilty. I think, yeah, I felt guilty about not working, and then I thought, actually, you have these conversations over your desk or when you grab a coffee, and we're not having those. So it's okay to go and make a tea or go downstairs and sit in the sun for 10 minutes. And then I think you've got to kind of build in a bit of fun into your week. I think I was probably a bit serious at the beginning and a bit stressed and worried about things that were so outside of our control. And actually now we're kind of doing dumpling nights, so we make dumplings, and puzzle nights, and trivia things with friends, and as much as we can kind of making it fun, and not getting caught up on the fact that we were supposed to go to France this weekend, which I'm not sad about at all. And yeah, just controlling what you can control, basically. The rest is just, there's not much we can do about it. And as everyone else has said, just being grateful for our health and the fact that we're in a good company that's in a pretty stable position at the moment.
Yeah, I echo that, actually. I echo that. At the beginning, mine's just enjoy it more. It's funny now we're starting to look at how lockdown's going to ease off. I'm suddenly like, oh my goodness, I'm quite enjoying my little work from home bubble and all those things that I have, and then suddenly this like new world comes about where we're all going to be in face masks and 2 meters apart from each other in the office and staggering different start times, and that fills me with a lot of anxiety. And actually, I think before we know it, we will all be back to work in some way or another. And actually, that those couple of months or whatever it turns into be, we'll look back and go, wow, like, remember that time. And so I think for me, it's like, just enjoy it more. Just like you said, so trying to enjoy it as much as possible. Cool. I think that brings us to a nice finish. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to our lovely panel for agreeing to do it. And next week, it's Keeping Productive with Parmi and Simran. Is that right, Sheila?
That's right, yeah. Keeping yourself motivated and productive next Tuesday at 11 again.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining and listening. And have a good day, afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.